We're ready for Matthew chapter 14. Throw some confetti here. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard the reports about Jesus, and he said to his attendants, "This is John the Baptist. He's risen from the dead. That is why miraculous powers are at work in him." Herod was quite paranoid, and he had a reputation. And then Matthew goes on to explain, now Herod had arrested John and bound him and put him in prison because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, for John had been saying to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." Herod wanted to kill John, but he was afraid of the people because they considered him a prophet. There is a common denominator among the prophets. They just said it. Not all prophets were gung-ho. Some were a little bit reluctant. John seems not to be reluctant. He just, it was not politically correct. It was not a smart, tactical move. But he called out Herod. You got the part that Herod had taken his brother's wife to be his wife. It's unclear from what Matthew writes as to whether or not Herodias, his brother's wife, had even been legitimately divorced by Philip, or whether Herod just decided she's mine and took her. Well, really, in either case, the law was, now we're not talking about Roman law, we're talking about Jewish law. It's unlawful. So I get it that, excuse me, Herod, by taking Herodias, that was what was outside the law, because Philip, a man, was entitled, he could, and frankly, this is it feels like in our culture, injustice, but the wife had a few rights, not many. The husband in a marriage had virtually all the rights, and Philip could have divorced her, and then Herod take her as his wife. There's just no way to, I don't know any way to find out for sure. And although I am a student of ancient history, I'm not a scholar of it. Okay, move on, Steve. Herod wanted to kill John. He just wanted to get him out of the way because John was so outspoken, but he was afraid of the people. Herod was a pretty good politician. Now, when I say good politician, I don't mean he was a good man in politics. No. I mean he was a selfish, paranoid, power-hungry politician. And he played the game of politics pretty well. He didn't have him killed because he knew that would not be a popular thing with the people. They considered John a prophet. Verse 6, on Herod's birthday, the daughter of Herodias danced for them and pleased Herod so much that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. Don't know what kind of dance it was. Don't even know the age of the daughter. We do know this is not Herod's daughter. This is Herodias' daughter. Her dad would have been Philip then, right? Just a little something in there. But whatever kind of dance it was, whatever her age was, she so pleased Herod that he promised to give, promised on oath to give her whatever she asked. Now, let's keep moving. Prompted by her mother, this is an interesting concept. Herod wanted to kill Jesus, or John, but he didn't because it wasn't a politically expedient move because of how the people viewed John. Herodias, his wife, she seemed to be not constrained at all by any of that. She, I think it's safe to say, she hated John the Baptist. Because verse 8, prompted by her mother, the daughter said, "Give me here on a platter the head of John the Baptist." That's not the kind of wish that a normal, I think it's safe to say she was probably a teenager, but that's not a normal kind of request, is it? That shows you, I think, one of the things I get from that is how hated he was by Herodias. And her daughter was a little bit of a puppet here. I want the head of John the Baptist on a platter right here. Well, that's pretty specific. It could have been, I want you to execute John the Baptist. No. I want the head, give me here on a platter the head of John the Baptist. Now, beheading was not unusual in this day. To have the head carried in on a platter to the birthday party, that was not quite as normal. It was a very savage time in so many ways, but this was even, I think, a step beyond. Well, verse 9, the king was distressed, but because of his oaths and his dinner guests, he ordered that her request be granted. Because of his oaths and his dinner guests. Well, John was at the mercy of a man who, seems to me, from what we've got here, who was fairly insecure. I don't want to be unnecessarily harsh toward Herod, which I think I'd have to go pretty far to do that, but I do realize he made oaths, and in that culture, Herod was a little more Roman than Jewish in his worldview and his enculturation, his attitudes, his ideas. In many ways, I think he fits the category of the secular Jew. At any rate, he had made oaths. That's the strongest possible promise in a Jewish culture. And he had dinner guests who had heard him. And for him to back down, well, that would have been a matter of shame. And in his culture, it was an honor/shame culture. And to be dishonored, to be shamed, was do anything, pretty much anything, to keep that from happening. And so here Herod, he gives in. Gives in, I don't know that that's, but I think to save face, then verse 10, he had John beheaded in the prison. His head was brought in on a platter and given to the girl, who carried it to her mother. Some accounts of beheading are, frankly, just horrible. There are times when it took 2 or 3 chops to get the head off the body. It wasn't necessarily the whack like you think of, I think of with a guillotine. Shoop, there goes the head. It could have been, we don't know. But even if it was a clean cut, it'd be vulgar. They bring the platter and give it to this teenage girl. I'm making that as an assumption. And how horrible would that have been? She carries it to her mom. I'm trying to account for the fact that, like I said, in terms of history, this is a brutal period of history, blood and guts. Even at that, this is pretty grotesque to me. And she takes it to her mother. Man, you don't want to get on the wrong side of Herodias, unless you're a prophet and you're more interested in speaking truth. Verse 12, John's disciples came and took the body and buried it. This would have been a horrible day for John's disciples. You think if he had died naturally, it would have been a horrible day, but this was even more horrible because he was literally murdered. And they knew who had murdered him, but there was nothing that could be done. Whew. They came and took the body and buried it. I don't know if they got the head. But to bury a dead person was the final act of honor that they could perform. And burial was an important thing in Jewish custom. So they did. Then they went and told Jesus. I don't know what the relationship between Jesus and the disciples of John was. They wanted him to know. And on one level, this is very understandable, since Jesus was a cousin of John the Baptist. So we have deducted that John and Jesus were known to each other. We don't know that they were close, but they were known to each other. And then lastly, the disciples of John had, I think, an element of respect for Jesus and regard for him. So they went and told him. We're going to see next time a little tiny window into what Jesus did. But for now, I'm out of time and I'm out of ideas. I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.